The U.S. team, Roethlisberger, Demas, Waller, and Ringgold. Are they good enough to match the marvelous Soviets?
In the United States, we haven't been as consistent in the past, although it's getting much better.
Coming next, the world's best are united. Tonight's presentation of the Goodwill Games is brought to you by Pepsi, the choice of a new generation. By the makers of Tums, the sodium-free antacid that's rich in calcium. By Kodacolor Gold Film, show your true colors. And by your local cable system, proud sponsor of the 1990 Goodwill Games. Live in Seattle from our International Broadcast Center feeding the world, the anchor of the 1990 Goodwill Games, Larry King.
Good evening and welcome. Welcome to the first broadcast of the 1990 Goodwill Games. It's going to be my great pleasure to anchor the next 17 nights. I'm here at the International Broadcast Center in beautiful Seattle, and from this tremendous set, we create our own global convention. We've got the people, the experts, to get it done. I'll be working with two of the best sports broadcasters in America, the veteran Nick Charles, we'll meet him in a moment, and the up-and-coming talent, Hannah Storm. We'll start with Hannah. What's down the road?
Lots down the road, Larry. You're going to love it. There's something for everybody. The 1990 Goodwill Games may just be the best multi-sport competition ever conducted on American soil. And from this position right here, with the help of my wall, I'll be able to track the activity of the 21 sports at these games. Tonight, our viewers will start by seeing swimming, also men's gymnastics and women's volleyball. And on Sunday night, track and field begins. It'll be followed by most of the traditional Summer Olympic sports that you're used to seeing, also two of the favorite traditional winter sports, figure skating and ice hockey, right in the middle of the summer. We have 15 venues divided into 3 metropolitan areas within the state of Washington, 17 days of competition ending on August 5th. More than 50 countries overall, 2,500 athletes, 186 events. And Larry, that is a lot of gold.
Thank you, Hannah. And this is a lot of town. I would think of all the places to be in America in late July, early August, Seattle might be the best weather-wise. Speaking of the best, my other co-host, know him a long time. He's a veteran at this game, and it's a great pleasure to be working with him, Nick Charles. Now, Nick, I know we've got Olympians and Olympians to be. Who's coming?
Well, Larry, perfect way to get these games jump-started. Tonight, for openers, it looks great. We're going to come out blasting out of the blocks, I think. Tonight, Americans Matt Biondi and Tom Jaeger, the two fastest swimmers on water. They'll face each other in the 50-meter freestyle. Also, Janet Evans, triple world record holder and arguably the best female swimmer the United States has ever had. We'll also see Hungarian backstroker Kristina Egersegi. She's already a national hero at the age of 15. In men's gymnastics tonight, the U.S. team has youth with Lance Ringgold and John Roethlisberger. But what a task to try and topple those Soviets. Their mix of depth and daring makes the Soviets the best in the world. Valentin Mogilny and Valery Lyokhin are the featured attractions tonight. They are unusually mature. When we get to track and field, we'll see most of the world record holders competing. There'll be 100-meter world record holder Carl Lewis, the best sprinter in American history, and U.S. hurdler Roger Kingdom, another world record holder. We'll also be seeing Olympians of the new generation, the world figure skating champions, America's Jill Trenery and Kurt Browning of Canada. Cuban boxer Felix Savon, who looks like the easy class of the heavyweights he can hit, and Kim Zmeskal, who may be the best gymnast the United States has ever produced. We have got a power-packed 17 days, Larry, coming.
Thanks, Nick. You're watching a new event. The Goodwill Games were put together only 4 years ago, held in 1986 in Moscow. For Turner Broadcasting, that was the beginning of a special partnership with the Soviet Union. Those games back in Moscow united people who had spent their lives worlds apart. These games are still about breaking barriers, but they're also about helping athletes break records.
Heavy favorites. But there's this catch. Only 4 gymnasts are competing per team at the Goodwill Games. Now that differs from most major meets where 6 gymnasts compete. The Soviets always put their terrific depth to great use. Few teams have 6 superior gymnasts, but many of them have 4, which basically means we should have a close competition, which also means the Americans should stand a chance at a medal. Let's go down 30 miles south of here to the Tacoma Dome. It's the largest wooden dome structure of its kind in the world. Jim Simpson and Tim Daggett are standing by, and the Soviets could certainly go 30 deep with their depth and not lose any quality. There will only be 4 Soviets on the floor. Jim, do you think it'll matter? Will they still be favored?
In a simple word, Hannah, no. At least all of the experts, including Tim Taggett, say no, because after all, the Soviets, Tim, have even benched a world champion before tonight. He's here, but they benched him. They don't need him.
That's right. Igor Korchimsky, the best gymnast in the world at the last World Championships, will not be competing. According to Arkayev, their coach, he's not good enough. They've done it before in the past with Mogilny. They did it again tonight.
Well, if they must concede this gold medal to the Soviets, what about the silver and what about the bronze? And let's be chauvinistic, what about the USA?
Well, you know, the Soviets are so overpowering. They are so good. They will win here tonight. But the rest of the field, it's completely wide open. I feel the Americans have a really good shot at a bronze, maybe even a silver.
Let us repeat something Hannah said. This is the first of 3 nights for the men. Then a week from tonight, the Soviet women come here for 3 more nights. How does this work? There's 6 on a team normally, but only 4, and 4 will compete tonight for each team. Only the top 3 scores will go for each team, and they'll aggregate the score. And, of course, the one team with the best score at the end wins it all. The gold, the silver, the bronze. Speaking of medals, she won also in 1984 down in Los Angeles. She is with us tonight. On the floor, by the vault, Kathy Johnson.
Thanks, Jim. As you can see, the United States men are warming up right behind me. Their first event is the vaulting event, which is good and bad. Good because it's a good event to ease into competition. It's an easy event. However, it's bad because the order of competition, they will compete first on 3 events, the vault, the parallel bars, and the high bar, and that could be a disadvantage for them. Let's go back to Jim.
All right, Kathy, Tim, and you and I will come back to the Tacoma Dome in a moment. The men's team championship in gymnastics competition in the Goodwill Games. Area, and looking down from the Goodyear blimp Columbia, Captain Tom Mattis in charge. There is the blimp, and Tom Mattis is up there out of Los Angeles looking down on this spectacular area of the country, the great Northwest and Seattle, and we are in Tacoma, and there's the first USA competitor, Chris Wallace from UCLA in the vault. The first competitor up tonight.
And this is such a critical event for the U.S. team and for Chris Waller. You know, it kind of is a little bit easier in some ways to get started on the vault because it is one shot, but whenever you have just one shot there, Jim, there's a chance for a major catastrophe. Hopefully, we'll get off to a good start here.
A member of the 1988 Olympic team at age 18. Check that. I was speaking of Lance Ringwald. This is Chris Waller in the vault.
Here's a laid out Cuervo. Watch it. And a great landing. Wow. You know, he had so many problems with this vault in the training, and that was fantastic for Chris. Fabulous start for the Americans.
Well, let's go back to what Kathy said as we look at it again here.
Now look at this here. It's a laid out Cuervo. He has to bend his knees a little bit early. And, you know, looking at that replay, he really does take quite a bit of a hop, and he's off the side a little bit.
And what Kathy said, as you know, Tim, this could be a disadvantage for the Americans to start first with the vault. And yet Chris, apparently, we'll await the score, has a good one to begin with.
Well, it's really going to depend, Jim, on whether or not he kept his body in the laid-out position long enough for the judges to rate that a straight body position. You noticed in the replay that he bent his knees a little bit early and landed off to the side a little bit, but we have to wait and see.
What about the pressure being the first step for the USA when the silver and bronze are up for grabs and in an event that they wish they had not started? In other words, the vault.
Well, yeah, this is really a tricky event, and especially for someone like Chris. He's much more at home on an event like the pommel horse or the parallel bars, whereas long body kind of, it works much better on those events.
Second in the Nationals at Denver a couple of weeks ago, there's Ed Birch out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. He is the men's gymnastics coach, and he says that the Americans have a chance to medal in the team event tonight.
Well, I think so. I think this is a young and a team that is on its way up. You know, I think one of the reasons why we're seeing such a long delay here is he is the first competitor, not only of this rotation, but of the meet, and the first person to compete on the vault. So the judges are kind of getting their bearings straight, getting rid of all the technical glitches on the computer, and all of that kind of stuff.
And is it not also true that you don't want to start out with too high a praise or a score for a competitor? That would set the tone for the rest of the evening. And how do you match something?
Well, certainly, certainly. You know, if for Chris, he's the first person up for the American team, and if the judge were to throw out a 9-8 or a 9-9 right now, they wouldn't really have anywhere to go, so the score will be considerably lower than that.
That is what we're waiting for right there. That is the scoreboard.
Hello, Mom.
And Chris Waller is waiting along with us for this first vault, and it is a long wait. Normally, the vault just goes zip, zip, zip. They only get one vault per competitor. And Chris Waller's not the only one here tonight for the USA.
So we also have Trent Demas. He is also training in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now. He also attends the University of Nebraska. We have Lance Ringnall and John Roethlisberger from the University of Minnesota.
You think Ed Birch is a little anticipatory, a little bit nervous here? The rest of the rotations continue to go on while the USA waits to see where it is in the vault after just one competitor. Remember, we'll never really get a feel for this meet and who's going to win the gold, silver, or bronze until later on in the rotations, and there are 6 rotations. At any time, 2 of the apparatus are not being used during these rotations.
You know, Jim, with the score taking so long to come up, I'm sure there is a major discussion right now as to whether or not they are going to value this a laid out Cuervo or a tucked Cuervo. And the difference, as I pointed out earlier, is significant. One of the vaults is a highly rated score, and obviously with a score of a 9.1, they valued that a tucked Cuervo, and that's a bit of a disappointing start for the Americans.
And now here is Trent Demas. His best event, of course, is the high bar, but he's got to go in the vault here for the USA and try to pick up on the score of Chris Waller.
Now, Trent will be doing a very interesting vault. Just since the '88 Olympic Games, it has been ruled by the FIG, which governs gymnastics in the entire world, that this vault is allowed. The women have been doing this for many years now, since about 1982, but the men are just allowed to do this vault now. It's called a Yurchenko, named after a famous Soviet gymnast. Let's watch it. He'll do a round off onto the board, a back handspring up to the horse, and a laid out back with a full off. Great vault. Excellent job. Just a little bit off to the side on the landing, but very clean in the air. This is a difficult vault. It should bring a much better score than Chris's.
Trent came of age internationally when in a meet earlier this year, he defeated Sylvia Kroll of the East Germans in the all-around.
Now watch this. There's the round off onto the board, a back with a laid out full, a pretty big hop on the landing, and a little bit off to the side, but he is very pleased with that. Watch again. Good push off the horse, and a fairly good landing.
Chris Waller has had the disappointing score, and Trent Demas has reason to believe that he will get a better score than that.
Oh, that certainly will bring a better score than what Chris had.
Well, while we await the score, let's go to Larry King.
Thanks, Jim. We're going to go back out to the Aquatics Center where Matt Biondi won the first event of this 1990 Goodwill Games and have a few words with Matt. First, thanks very much for staying. I know I really appreciate you doing this. Can you hear me okay?
The masterful Soviets are ahead. A very young Chinese team is in second place, followed by Japan. The Americans have fallen back to fifth. I know that their first event was the vault. Any surprises out there, Jim Simpson and Tim Daggett?
Well, Hannah, I don't know about surprises. The Soviets are leading, as you said, although Tim Daggett is kind of shaking his head as you take a look at the score there, in the fact that they're doing very well, but they could be doing better. And as far as fifth is concerned, remember the Americans are tied with Japan and East Germany for fifth.
No, they're
Valeria Lukin on the rings, and you will see a good performance here, Tim, but it's not the best performance they turned in tonight, as good as it is.
Yeah, this is pretty darn good. This gets just about as good as you can get on the still rings. I actually think they graded him a little bit severely on this routine. The thing that Liukin does better than anyone on the still rings is he really meshes the strength with the swing so well. That's a back kick right to a Maltese. Now watch this. He lowers down, bounces right to that cross. Incredibly difficult. But as I said, he is not just a strong man. As you'll notice, right after this inverted cross, he'll show us some beautiful swing right through the handstand. reverse sequence. A little bit of a bobble there. But just watch this. Completely right in the bucket.
And he got a 9.85, but that was not as good as Valeri Valenki, who went just before him with a 9.